Just think, if you can get proper land title on your property, you can immediately start borrowing against it.
So, Dr. Edward George, how well developed is fintech in Sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, actually, a lot of people would be surprised to realize just how developed disruptive technology and financial technology is in Africa. There's always this assumption that African economies are rather basic, they're all focused on commodities and low value. But the truth is there has been an explosion in the use of technology in Africa since the advent of mobile phones. So 15 years ago, less than 1% of Africans had a mobile phone. Today, it's more like 70–80%. And in some countries, the big economies like Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, it's effectively 100%. And this mobile connection is enabling people to start offering all sorts of services to Africans: lending, saving, insurance, hire purchase. I mean, the list is almost endless. So there's a huge amount of disruption going on with technology in Africa at the moment, but most of the broader world is completely unaware of it.
So why has Kenya's mobile money transfer system been so successful?
Well, I think the thing about M-PESA, which is the transfer system they have in Kenya, is that it is a bit of a one-off. There were many things which were perfect about the country when they first launched the service. There was very strong regulation for telecoms and very strong support from the regulator, the central bank, the finance ministry, and the National Assembly. So the government is really invested in the success of the operation. But also, M-PESA is run by Safaricom, which is the most dominant mobile company in Kenya. They have a market share of between 70–80%, and certainly for mobile transfers, it's almost 90–95%. So effectively, you have one country, one platform, and that means every other service can be laid on top of that and effectively go out to everyone in the country who has a mobile phone, whereas other countries don't have that kind of interoperability.
So why has M-PESA's success not been repeated in other African nations?
Well, I think the problem is it partly has to do with the setup and regulation. In a lot of other countries, it's necessary, if you want to set up a mobile money service as a telco, that you have to partner with a bank. And banks and telcos don't tend to partner very well. They tend to have conflicting interests. But also there is this other problem of interoperability. If you have 4 or 5 different telcos who have different mobile platforms, none of them are really compatible. We have the same problem in the West as well. If you have one particular mobile phone and your friend has a different one, very often it's more expensive to call them. It's difficult to transfer airtime between them. And so that's one of the biggest issues. But I think also it's about realizing that there's no one-size-fits-all. M-PESA is perfect for Kenya and was developed for the Kenyan market with a huge amount of work from Kenyans. And the same has to go for Nigeria, South Africa. You need a model that works for that particular country. You can't just take it from one country and impose it on another.
So how can fintech break down barriers for businesses across Africa?
Well, what's incredible about fintech is it's not just one sector in its own. It crosses every single sector, because when you talk about financial technology, you're talking about connecting people digitally, you're talking about creating digital profiles, and you're really talking about improving logistics, efficiency, and services. So actually what fintech is doing is actually breaking down the barriers between sectors. To give you one example, a lot of telecommunication companies are trying to get banking licenses, or at least licenses to give financial services. And then there are some banks which are buying telecom companies. So which is which? Which is the bank? Which is the telco? And you're finding increasingly many other different kinds of sectors are starting to cross over with each other because technology is breaking down that barrier. So really, it opens up such enormous possibilities here. There's no longer going to be this dominance by 1 or 2 particular monopolies. There's the opportunity for all companies to become a bit of each other, all in the process.
And with the development of blockchain technology, what does this hold for Africa in the future?
Well, the blockchain underpins Bitcoin, which is one of the cryptocurrencies used in the world at the moment. And Bitcoin has limitations in terms of how it can be used for international trade, because there's a relatively small amount of Bitcoins around there. The system is rather slow compared to some of the fast payments. But the underlying technology of the blockchain is what is now being used for non-financial blockchain providers. A blockchain essentially is a public ledger which can be distributed, but which cannot be falsified. And this is the key point. It is, in a sense, a truth engine. So you can use a blockchain, for example, for things that you want to ensure are records that can be accessed but cannot be falsified. So if you think of land title or voter registers, you could also think of things like public sector worker roles. So you don't end up with ghost workers who are claiming salaries when they don't even exist. And there are many projects underway across Africa now to try and use the blockchain to enable Africans to get a digital identity. Because as soon as you have a digital identity, you can open up to all the kinds of services which are offered all across the world. We take that sort of thing for granted now in the West. That is something being introduced into Africa. And via the mobile phone and using the blockchain, there are many benefits that can go to the average African. Just think, if you can get proper land title on your property, you can immediately start borrowing against it. As it currently stands, with corruption, someone could go into the land registry, bribe somebody, and get a piece of paper saying that's their land, and kick you off it. With the blockchain, that simply can't happen.
Well, thank you, Dr. Edward George, for speaking with Dukascopy TV today. You're
welcome.
That's all for today's interview, but don't forget to click back on Dukascopy TV for more programmes like this. Goodbye for now.